Well, you definitely have to know your community. And you can't be patronizing and have a I know better than you mentality. We do like to send out parent surveys to see, to gauge what they're feeling, what their needs and concerns are. After this last election cycle, I was one of the first superintendents in this area and probably one of the few that had to address the elephant in the room as far as the crackdown on immigration and how that would impact our school. We have a large immigrant population, and I had some pushback from some board members that, they were very vocal about the message that I put out to the community. And essentially it was that we are here to support you. We know what the new administration's agenda is going to be, but we are here to protect student rights and parent rights, and we're here to educate. And some people thought that was being political. I said, it's not being political. I'm not saying anything negative or positive about the new administration. I am just simply letting parents know this is the agenda, and this is how we plan to deal with the new agenda.
Hi, my fellow superintendents and school leaders. I'm Avinash, the co-founder at Tomo Club. And today on our Tomo Club podcast series, we have the superintendent of Englewood Public Schools. Did I pronounce that right?
Englewood Public School District. Englewood with an E. Yes, sir.
Perfect. And Dr. Marnie Hazelton. And it's so good to have you on our discussion today. And our topic is very interesting: how schools can build strong parent engagement. I think it's a term that's thrown very loosely and randomly, but I think I'm going to deep dive into how you actually create successful, authentic, trustful relationship with families, especially in the time when parent choice is much and more promoted in every state and every district. So welcome to the podcast, Maruni, and yeah, it's good to have you.
Thank you, Avinash. It is my pleasure to join you today and in your audience. I look forward to a robust conversation. And I just appreciate the outreach and inviting me to be a part of this conversation.
Absolutely. So I always start my podcast with a very simple and direct question. What got you into education in the first place? And if you can give us a snapshot of your story, that would be really helpful.
I took the long scenic route. I was raised in a two-parent family household. My brother and I, my mother and father were the first to attend and graduate college in their families. So college, that expectation was always there. My mother is a retired educator, started as a teacher and retired as a school administrator. And my dad worked for AT&T. When I was in college, I transferred around. I really wanted to go into music. I love writing. I love performing. I used to host a radio show. So when I graduated, my first course was going to be the road I was going to go down was law school. But then I opened my own public relations firm, which was an international firm where I promoted hip hop mixtapes that I recorded. And I did that in Germany, in Paris, in Morocco, in Amsterdam, and loved it until my dad was like, when are you going to get a real job? Living paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. I was a lifeguard to pay for my trips abroad and to invest in my business. And then one day I saw an advertisement in the paper for substitute teachers. The only qualification needed was a bachelor's degree. So I said, I could try that. I started substitute teaching during the day, worked as a lifeguard at night every 4 or 5 weeks. And then I would take off and go to Europe and do my side business. And I did that for like 5 years. My dad was still, when are you gonna get a real job with benefits? And then what I found as a substitute teacher, I did really well teaching. Some of my long-term assignments in schools in my neighborhood, principals took notice and said, you should go back to school and get all of your teaching certifications and credentials and become a full-time teacher. When I looked into that, it became very overwhelming. The cost associated going back to school and taking courses in education. and I just never revisited. Then one Sunday, reading the New York Times while I was lifeguarding. I was on break as a lifeguard, and it was an ad that said 1 out of 4 New York City school children cannot read. What are you going to do about it? And it was an advertisement for the New York City Teaching Fellows, cohort 1. And what they were looking for career changers, those that wanted to go into education to change the world. They were going to provide you with a mentor over the summer training. They were going to pay for all of your tests. They were going to prep you for your exams for teaching, and they were going to pay for your master's degree in education. And give you a job. And give you a job starting in September in one of the lowest performing schools, the bottom 40 in New York City. And the upshot was you got to select which school you wanted to work in. They had a big career fair, and we interviewed principals to see which school we wanted to work in. And I ended up working in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, PS 309 in 2000 as a 5th grade teacher, and I fell in love. And that began my journey. I stayed there for 5 years. Did an additional 3 years in the classroom, and then all the great things that people saw me doing in the classroom pulled me out into administration. And I've been a superintendent for the last 10 years, October. This is my 3rd school district, and 10 years, we'll mark 10 years in October.
Wow. This is the most colorful story I've ever heard. Like,
Thank you.
why have you made the movie and sold the rights?
I do have a book. I have a couple books. I have a book, Pre-Superintendent, while as a teacher, as a superintendent. I do have a story to tell.
That's completely like a movie scene. You saw the advertisement and fully paid, and you're like, let's go, and boom,
It changed the trajectory of my life. Yeah.
That's like the best success story of that program that would ever been predicted, that they could put someone from a career change, and 15 years later she will be a superintendent. That's incredible.
Less than 15 years. It took all of 7 things. I went into the program 15 years until I was a superintendent, but I became an administrator in 2008, so 8 years. Became a district administrator. And I forgot to mention, while in the course, they gave us while in the program, they gave us an additional $10,000 to put toward tuition reimbursement. And I did not have any college debt. So I used that $10,000 to obtain my certification in administration. So New York City Teaching Fellows paid for my master's degree and my administrative certification.
God bless those policymakers who got that program.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we won't have you working in education so well. So insane. Like, this is gonna be an insane story. And but you got into education with that one simple advertisement saying 1 out of 4 kids cannot read. Right? Did you achieve that goal to a certain degree? And what's the reason that keeps you going now?
It was very difficult. We go into teaching to try to change the world. And for the most part, as a classroom teacher, you have that child for 1 year. And they can leave your classroom thriving. And then in the next year, they can have a teacher that doesn't pour into them the way you did, and it can derail a child so much so that it could put them on a pathway to become a high school dropout.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that my success story is in those students, especially that first group of students that still maintain contact with me through social media, Facebook, IG. That was 2000. A lot of them have children of their own. Some of them have great success stories. Some of them were derailed. But the stories and the memories that they share with me regarding that 1 year in the classroom with me, and our experience together was documented because it was a new, groundbreaking program. A lot of national media covered the journey. So I was featured on Good Morning America during my first full year as a teaching fellow. So Good Morning America came in throughout the year, a total of 4 times, and just tracked our progress. So we have those memories, and I like to think that I have contributed to the universe some well-intentioned, um, great adults
Hmm.
that
Great.
I met as children, and that they are contributing to society, and
Yeah.
that's the legacy.
No, that's the best, I would say, frame of mind going forward as an educator, because um, sometimes you cannot see the whole journey of a child. Of course, there are some students who will come back after a few years getting married and like having a successful work life, and then they'll be sharing those stories. I've heard those, and those are the most magical moments for any educator. But I think
Absolutely.
on a daily basis, that's the best feeling, that I did my bit with full consciousness, with full clarity, and yeah, that's how you are giving back. So lovely.
Thank
But being an so okay, let's take it back from being a lifeguard to running your own business, to being an educator and then administrator. What's the most important lesson that you have learned about working with families from different communities?
That's the one variable that we do not have control over.
Hmm.
Children do not get to select their parents, and as educators, we do not have the opportunity to select the type of households that our students arrive in school. We don't have
Selection process.
that selection. That's a variable that we cannot control. So I had to learn early. I went into teaching with rose-colored glasses, drawing from my experience, coming from a two-family household with college-educated parents that placed my brother and I in private schools that were there for every school event. They indulged us in every after school activity, every summer camp, which I thought was normal. Did
Hmm.
not seem out. That's what everybody did.
Yeah.
And then working in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, and my students asking me, "Well, you don't have any kids?" I said, "No, because I'm not married." And having to repeat that, and they not, just different values and how we were raised, and not to say one is right or wrong, but coming from a different background, understanding that there are challenges, and we think, well, if you have children, you should be there for your kids. You show up to school when the teacher summons you. You're there to pick up the phone and address anything that is going on with your kids. And that first year, I had parents tell me, "Stop calling me. I'm not coming up. I'm not dealing with that. You handle it." It's like, what? So I really had to adopt a mindset quickly that this is my classroom. I'm in charge of my classroom. I'm in charge of the behavior, and I'm in charge of educating you. I'm not going to send you to the principal's office. I will make initial attempts to call your parents or grandparents or whomever you live with, but I am not going to exhaust myself doing that. So if you have a situation where that's not an option, where mommy and daddy they're not coming to the school,
Hmm.
then I'm going to have to come up with other solutions. However, what I did, I was very intentional about inviting those parents, those grandparents, aunts, those foster care parents. That first year, I made sure I had a Mother's Day luncheon where I invited everyone in on my own dime. I went to Costco because you can buy in bulk, and we bought roses and we bought all types of things on my own dime to have this wonderful Mother's Day brunch, and then a Father's Day brunch. At that time, when I first started teaching, I did not have any children. So my weekends, I would drive back into the neighborhood and pick them up and take them to different cultural events in Manhattan. I would just pile a bunch of kids into my Jeep Grand Cherokee. I remember it to this day. Looking back, hindsight's 2020. Probably for insurance purposes, I shouldn't have done that, but that's what I did.
No, that's really like a. It's going to be a shock, of course, coming from a different family and then feeling that you are totally responsible for these set of kids in and out.
Mhm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad could still power through, because that can be a huge cultural difference, I would say. And
Yes.
but as a teacher versus as a superintendent or as a school leader, you have a different kind of responsibility. You're not responsible for only your class, but all the classes, and moreover responsible for the community building part.
Yes.
So if you can share any experiences or any instance of that, that how was it
Mm-hmm.
different from the cultural or the society building as a teacher versus superintendent?
So there is a hierarchy in education, and you may not, unless you work in education, you understand that the closer you are to children day to day, the more trust the community has in you. So the most respected folks in the schools are teachers, are your maintenance workers, and your secretaries. And the higher you go up the food chain, people start to distrust you, especially central office. Superintendent, you're not in the classrooms. So you don't have that one-to-one relationship. I have been blessed that my office in this district in Englewood is located in the high school. In another district, it was in the high school. And in another district, I was close to a school. So I'm able to walk out of my office and run into students. And so I had to build those relationships. I have a superintendent student advisory council where I meet with students once a month to get their feedback. Once you gain the trust of students, then you can work on parents because students will pressure their parents. Dr. Hazelton is having a screening of A Right to Read. You should go. And when students speak positively about you, parents will drop down their guard. But while I'm working on that, simultaneously, I am still creating parent engagement events. When I was assistant superintendent through Title I, one of my mentors said, you have a problem with parent engagement. They're not coming out to these parent compact meetings. They're not following the regulations outlined in Title I as far as these meetings. I said, I know how to get them out. I said, I will put together this huge back to school fair. We'll do inflatables. We'll have food trucks where the food will be free. We'll have student performances. He said, are you going to be able to do that? I said, watch me. And I put it together in a few weeks. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of parents came out. That school district, that is one of the hallmarks of their year. They are still doing the back to school fair, which I started in Roosevelt. And this Saturday, September the 6th, Englewood will have our third back to school fair. And it is an event that people look forward to. Parents come out. Each school has a table with information for parents. We partner with community-based organizations, our banks, our fire department, our library. They all have tables out with all the information that they want to disseminate to parents. So we build this area, this event, and they will come. And so I do things like that. If there's if there's an interesting documentary that's dealing with education, I will host parent screenings where we'll watch the movie and a documentary, and then we'll discuss. I first did that in Roosevelt when I bought tickets on my own to a screening of Waiting for Superman. I bought $700 worth of tickets to buy out a movie theater in Manhattan, and the school district ordered 5 yellow buses. So
Wow.
I've been doing that since I can remember, bringing the people out, feeding them, and then having those conversations about how they can be better educators to their parents in the household.
That's an incredible story again. Like, you are full of stories. It's loving
Yes.
it, because like pulling off such kind of events which can become a landmark, huge congratulations again for that. And hopefully you have a great parent show up rate on September 6th. I'm pretty sure,
Yes.
but
Yes.
yeah. But
And there are times, sir, when we go all out and we have the administrators outnumber the parents.
is
Not
it?
at the back to school fair. Yeah, some days is very depressing that they don't. And I understand people work and some
Yeah.
work 2 or 3 jobs, especially in this economy.
Yeah.
And they just, and that's why we're intentional about feeding them
Mhm.
and having and offering babysitting as well, especially if they have young children.
Yeah, bro, that makes so much sense because apart from the parents, it's also going to be such an impressionable day for the children themselves. You know,
Mhm.
it's like that their parents showing up and parents meeting with other parents. I think it can solve and it can the like for a school, the biggest pain points are attendance, academic score, and behavior discipline data, right? And this
Mhm.
can actually positively impact all three. So yeah, I think that's a beautiful initiative. But I also read about a liaison role that you created at Englewood, right? Like a district community
Yes.
liaison. Can you tell us more about it? That how did you come up with it and what's their role?
So when I was in the classroom, and then when I became an administrator, I was director of grants and then coordinator of elementary education and assistant superintendent for curriculum. I had time and I had the luxury of being able to lead these events for parent engagement. That was what I loved to do. When I became superintendent, my time was no longer my time between
Yeah,
the board and the school. I had no time to really uh, uh, engage in my passion, which was parent engagement. And I said, I can't do this work and be superintendent. And I advocated to our board. I said, this is a role, a position that'll pay for itself. I said, I've done it. I will mentor the person that will lead. And a lot of the events I have come up with I've come up with the creation and I just give the work over to execute it. I said, okay, this is the date. This is what we're going to do. And now you execute and take care of all the planning and whatnot. And that's why I felt it was very important going out into the community, making those connections with the CBOs, establishing a relationship, establishing the rapport and trust. That's a full-time job. And as superintendent, there are not enough hours in the days for me to do that. So that's why I was very passionate about creating that standalone position. And the person that we have is wonderful. She is making the vision of this back to school fair. She's making it a reality. We have a cyber cafe that she also helps to supervise. Donations that we solicit from local businesses. We give those out to teachers during various events. We use those donations as raffles. And we were also able to partner with the grocery chain Stop and Shop to open up a food pantry. And we secured $17,000 in gift cards from Stop and Shop to buy groceries to stock the food pantry. And we distribute bags of groceries once every 2 weeks to about 100 families in the district.
that's incredible. I think all those initiatives are so meaningful and so relevant for the community rather than just being a surface level show. I respect that. I love that. Um, but also, I want to understand that we're talking about the positive impact, but I always believe that I can always learn from someone's mistakes and not copy their success, right? So
Yep.
I think a lot of school leaders who are gonna be listening to this, let's share some sort of your failures or mistakes that you learned from because I think they can at least avoid those pitfalls. When we think about parent engagement, what are the mistakes that actually end up alienating them rather than integrating them?
Well, you definitely have to know your community. And you can't be patronizing and have a "I know better than you" mentality. We do like to send out parent surveys to see, to gauge what they're feeling, what their needs and concerns are. After this last election cycle, I was one of the first superintendents in this area and probably one of the few that had to address the elephant in the room as far as the crackdown on immigration and how that would impact our school.
Yeah.
We have a large immigrant population, and I had some pushback from some board members that, they were very vocal about the message that I put out to the community. And essentially, it was that we are here to support you. We know what the new administration's agenda is going to be, but we are here to protect student rights and parent rights, and we're here to educate. And some people thought that was being political. I said, it's not being political. I'm not saying anything negative or positive about the new administration. I am just simply letting parents know this is the agenda and this is how we plan to deal with the new agenda. And, people said, well, would you put this letter out if the other person had won? And I said, that's an irrelevant argument because the person who was fairly elected has a platform. And this is what they're telling you they're going to do. So to be forewarned is to be forearmed.
Yeah.
What is the issue? And so I said, we're moving forward with this. And I'm glad we did because people were seeking information. And what happens on a federal and national level, it does have local impact.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing, knowing your community, knowing their needs, trying to anticipate their needs, and being able to take constructive feedback and receive that and be self-reflective. I did mention we had large events, which I was very excited, and I just knew we would have a packed audience. And a lot of people did register, hundreds of people registered, and we ordered food based upon the community registration. And the night of the event, I believe it was when we hosted a screening of the documentary A Right to Read, and only a handful of people showed up. And it was disappointing. However, I could not let that defeat me, that moment defeat or define. I had to figure out, okay, why didn't people show up? On one occasion, there was a large funeral in the community. A young person had unexpectedly died in a car accident. So hindsight, maybe I should have rescheduled. Because the majority went to the funeral. I went to the viewing and thought, people, but didn't really think through that maybe after a funeral, people would not want to go to a school event. So hindsight's 2020, and making sure when you plan your events that it's not in conflict with something else that's going on in the community. Is it something relevant to the lives of our parents that's worth, taking relaxing time? Because after working a hard day, and I'm guilty of this, I have a son, and when he was in school, some days I'm working 10, 12-hour days. The last thing I want to do is go to a parent-teacher conference.
Right.
So you have to understand that and don't take it personally.
Nice. I think those are two very good learning points. And I respect on the first point because I have been talking to few school leaders because schools are going to start from it's supposed to be after Labor Day. So this is the first week. And until last week, they didn't know how many people will show up as a new school year enrollments they had almost 30% no confirmation yet from the last year because they were immigrant heavy districts. And a lot of parents are afraid to send their kids out of the house, which is very sad. So irrespective of whatever your legal status be, we're not talking about that, but what we're talking about is addressing the concern of people who are legit, at least. And even if they are feeling insecure, so as a school, you have to inject that confidence, not for anything else, but at least to maintain your own enrollments. So this is like a very basic business function of your district, because if the enrollment go down, everything will start to crumble, whether it is your financial availability of helping other kids, the community itself. So I think any school leader who's not talking about it is doing a disservice to their own district's financial health, I would say, apart from anything else.
You have to be able to track your students. You need student enrollment. And now what we're finding when we're trying to finalize our graduation rates for our graduation rate from last year, we're finding students that disappeared because someone in their family, parents, deported. They just disappeared. So guess what? Now they count as dropouts and
Wow.
they impact our graduation rate. So all politics is local.
Agreed. Absolutely. It's always it always impacts the grassroots first. Whoever designs a policy, it always affect the grassroots first. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess I feel you on that part.
Mm-hmm.
Also, now I would love to understand that overall, when I was looking at your school's ratings in terms of academic scores and everything, they are still a work in progress, right? It's still
Yes.
not has not reached a decent level. So, how do you build trust of the parents around the term like engagement when the data is also not being positive? Because sometimes people do consider them to be not connected, though I
Mm-hmm.
understand they're very connected, but it's difficult to couple them together. That they're like, if the school is doing good, then the parent engagement should be the focus. People usually consider them a latter priority. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you look at these two things together, and how do you communicate it out?
So it is a work in progress. Englewood, for the last 25 years, has been a district that has always been in the bottom as far as performance rates in the state of New Jersey. But it's a high wealth community. It's under a desegregation order because of white flight and middle class flight. So when I was brought in as superintendent 3 years ago, the buck stops with me. I am not one to say, well, it was like this when I got here. And no, I occasionally remind people, the naysayers, well, what are you doing? I said, it didn't take you this is my third year. It didn't take you 3 years to get into this mess, and it's going to take you more than 3 years for us to turn it around.
Mm.
So, what I like to do is celebrate every success, those small wins, those large wins. We are making gains. We have documented concrete data on we are decreasing the learning gap between subgroups. We were cited in a recent article that we were one of 9 low performing schools in New Jersey that made post pandemic growth gains. So, taking that information and making sure that the entire community is aware. We have a PR department where we're putting out press releases on every positive point of pride that happens in the district. I make sure that we put out a quarterly newsletter highlighting points of pride from each school building. So anytime that we have a win, we celebrate it as if we won the World Series because it is part of our progression. And in order to change the dynamic and academic outcomes in any district, you got to look at culture. You got to look at morale because what's the saying? Culture will trump policy any day.
Oh yeah.
So you have to work on changing the culture, cultivating a good working relationship with the unions, the administrative union, as well as the teachers union. I have a teachers advisory group, superintendent advisory group, where I meet with them quarterly, and it's just a listening session where I say we talk about ideas and not people. They share with me some of their concerns. I like to be actionable, not just to listen, but to come back and say, okay, I heard this concern and this is how I addressed it. And being available and letting people know at every turn, I'm always a teacher first. I have never forgotten what it's like to be in the classroom. And that is the position in which I operate from. I am a teacher first that happens to be also superintendent. And now, when I started, I wasn't, but I am now. I'm a mother, 19-year-old kid. So that also changed my mindset as well, becoming a mother and understanding, because I see it from a different lens. Before, my only frame of reference was as a child with two parents.
No, absolutely, and I 100% agree with you, especially when the situation is a little messy and you want to improve in the school ratings and school academic score. I think parent
Mhm.
engagement should be the first priority because,
Mhm.
anyways, the seriousness among the students for showing up, for working on their score levels, has to start being at the narrative at home too, because
Exactly.
that becomes a huge influence in the child's
Mhm.
life. So I think it's something which is very critical, and I'm glad you are very actively working on every aspect of it. Now I'm going to talk about very important topic, that the topic of parent choice. So a lot of public schools are actually competing with private schools. It has always been competing with private schools, but now charter schools and parents are getting direct vouchers to decide where they want to spend their money uh,
Uh,
on vendors approved, and especially for homeschooling. So how are you communicating? What's the biggest strength of public schools model, or let's leave public schools Englewood model, that
mhm.
you believe can't be replicated or is a unique selling point for your school to attract families?
So in this game, you have to be like P.T. Barnum and Ringling Brothers and Barnum. You have to be the largest or the loudest cheerleader for your district. I always communicate with my boards and stakeholders that the school district is the focal point of the community. It drives property values. It is a determining factor for families whether or not they want to invest in a home in a community. It drives crime rate. When I was in a district in Long Island, the chief of police said to me, I want to thank you for what you're doing here in the school district because we've noticed a difference in the community. You know, incidents, certain crime stats are down, and we attribute that to what's going on in the school. So thank you. So there is a correlation, and that's why those
Yeah.
relationships with our local police department and the city council and the mayor is so important. So what I try to tell parents and teachers and community stakeholders, if you have a high performing school district, I guarantee you, and data shows that your property, the value of your property will increase. No
Mhm.
one wants to invest, especially in these times, no one wants to invest in property, having to pay property taxes and mortgage rates, and then you cannot send your child to the local neighborhood school. You have to spend additional income on private schools. And no one wants to do that. So it's our mission to make our neighborhood school more attractive. That means it has to be academically forward thinking. It has to be safe. It has to be respected, and that's a PR campaign. That's
Yeah.
going out into the community. That's holding back to school fairs. That's holding open houses. Making sure that our website is always up to date with all the great things that we have going on. Celebrating student success. We have an academy where we are always sending our graduates off to Ivy League schools and some of the top schools, highlighting those students. In a former district, at the end of the year, I commissioned these huge banners of 50 of our graduating seniors, and it had their graduation portrait along with their class year and the college or university that they were committing to or the branch of military that they were committing to. And we hung those all around the community of Linden, New Jersey. And the community went wild. It was a point of pride. Like,
Yeah.
look, we are graduating folks that are moving on to the next chapter in a great college or university or going into service or going into the workforce. So it is a constant PR campaign. It's twofold. It's a constant PR campaign, and it's also a constant laser-like focus on what's going on in the classroom, improving best practices, improving teacher instruction, and that's supporting teachers as well as providing the necessary professional development to improve student outcomes. So it's a lot of balls in the air.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Makes sense. So, no, those are very important points. And I think if you are not speaking good for yourself, why would anybody else? Always believe
exactly.
in that strategy. And again, there are a lot of value. I think that inherent value that your property rates will go up is so smart
Yeah.
and so
Uh-huh.
logical because, again, of course, I think that's a good point.
You don't want to invest in a losing investment, right? And your house, for most Americans, that's the largest investment that they will ever make in their lifetime, to buy a home.
And plus, it's your tax dollars. So let's say even if you're getting a $4,000 or $5,000 vouchers, the
Mhm.
state and the federal will end up spending anything from 10 to 20 grand. So you can just look at the difference of number and the impact because a public school will have a playground, will have educators, substitutes, after school, transportation. There's so much additional values. And especially when you are also going to be able to work and know your kids are going to be safe and learning in a
And it's
environment.
in your neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a neighborhood so they can get a chance to talk to other kids. I think for me personally, a lot of other things can get replaced depending on your financial strength, but the angle of the school being a place to network and place to hang out
Yes.
is so important, and that will define the future of learning because a lot of other things are getting commoditized with AI, whether it's content, whether it's curriculum, even tutoring. It's now getting much more easier through AI. And I think
Uh,
what would be really the future of school look like is if I want to send my child and if my child wants to go to that school to
mhm.
have healthy discussions, to have a personality development, to have their own whole mindset growth because they're able to listen to diverse ideas and able to debate, discuss, and still make their points heard. Those things you cannot always teach within this house environment or within a small community. You need to be
Yes.
out there where there are people from different places coming together. And I think
Uh-huh.
you're right. Public schools can be the center of the city itself, and
Uh-huh.
everything can be related to it. Every kind of service. So yeah,
Mhm.
I do believe in the public school systems, and I am pretty sure there's a lot going on over there which can be solved. Uh, so I now definitely want to talk about the last section of our discussion is around AI because no discussion today is without AI. And
Uh-huh.
so, how has been it first of all been taken up in your school district? Um, are they looking at it as a big opportunity for narrowing the achievement gaps, or there is
Mhm.
fear around it? Can you paint a picture of how everyone is responding to it?
So, depending on who you speak to, before the end of last school year, I met with my teachers, superintendent advisory council, and they share their concerns regarding cheating and plagiarism.
Yeah.
That, they could immediately detect that papers were run through AI, take home exams answered through AI, homework through AI. So I get that, and the board, we're adopting policy. We also have purchased various computer programs that can detect if something has been run through AI or it's been plagiarized. But however, I have found that AI is such a powerful and useful tool. So what we're doing now, we are creating a series of professional development opportunities to teach our teachers about the benefits of AI, and even some of our clerical staff and other administrators that have not even experimented with AI. It is such a time saver with evaluations, observations, writing letters, creating anything you want, flyers and programs. So it's just a wealth of just possibilities, and it's essentially training our staff and students to use AI for good and not for evil. And that's the power. I recently saw a segment, there's this discussion around how many jobs in the future that AI is going to replace, and that we have to start thinking about, preparing our kids for the future. And there is some validity to that, but the percentage of jobs that AI is going to replace is not as large as we think. The news segment that I saw, it mentioned teachers and firemen and policemen. AI will never be able to replace those positions, and not even teachers, because we all saw the damaging effect of asynchronistic learning and virtual learning during COVID.
Yeah.
Remember when COVID first started and everyone was like, oh, this is the new wave. This is going to revolutionize education. It did not. It did
Yeah.
not. We're still recovering from that. And research has shown that the most effective teacher is someone that's present in the room with the child, not via computer screen.
Yeah.
So it's just that professional development, exploring how AI can enhance the educational experience. We're putting together a full tech conference in October. It's called Techtober, Igniting Innovation in Education. And we have a few keynote speakers, including the superintendent from Mineola, Dr. Mike Nagler, who is like the guru of technology in the education world. So it's just having those ongoing conversations and providing that professional development. And AI, it changes daily, trying to stay in front of it.
Right. No, I love that. I think those are very valid points, from the teacher's concerns to the value it can bring in. And I do see a lot of potential in the way it can be, like, there's a lot of ethical consideration to be taught around using AI, a lot of updation of the policies but yeah, it it may or may not revolutionize the whole education as a piece, but it can definitely give more face time to educators to work with students. And I think that's my biggest hope, that teachers can start enjoying the reason that they became teachers in the first place, which sometimes gets um, carried away with paperwork and
Oh
other.
yeah, it definitely decreases the amount of time we have to spend on paperwork. Oh
So
my goodness, it's been a lifesaver, because even as a superintendent, if something happens, you always have to put out a message to the community, and then
yeah.
you're overthinking it and you're rewriting it and you're editing it. I put down my key points, the thought, and what I want to convey, and in seconds,
Yeah.
voila.
Beautiful.
I love
That's
it.
lovely. So, so I think we did cover up a lot of aspects of the parent engagement, and I love all the points that you brought to the table, which I'm pretty sure is going to be helpful for people listening to this conversation once it's out there. So, honestly, thank you so much, Dr. Hazelton, for your time. It has
My
been a
pleasure.
very good learning. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.